Hi, folks, and welcome to episode 13. Is that right? 12? 13? I don't remember. Today we are going to be discussing the Chariot card. So, I know we're hopping all over the place, um, but it keeps it interesting. So, the Chariot card is, I'm gonna put our card up on the screen, and I've got some key colors. There's blue, there's pink, there's green. And that's like the trifecta. As I'm going through the cards, I realize I also use some repeating imagery, and we'll get into that shortly. And I'll explain the reason why, because there's a lot of there's one key repeating image in this card. So, to give a description to anyone who's just listening, the card itself, the background is sort of like this blue sky. There's cherry blossoms decorating the page. And in the upper left-hand quadrant is a pink car with a woman out the window. It's part of a car. It's not the complete car. It's sort of cut off at the back seat. Like you can only see the back seat. And then in the right lower quadrant, we have a green car, also just a fraction of it. So, this card is fairly straightforward overall. It captures the idea of like moving forward towards your goals, towards whatever you're determined to reach. And it's a card of willpower. It's a card of knowing that you can get to wherever you're at, or wherever you want to go from where you're at, based on your own power. But classically, when we talk about the Chariot card, this card is about aligning the different parts of your psyche. And interestingly enough, we talked about them once before when we were discussing the Devil card at the very beginning. Our good friend Eliphas Levi, and he was super taken by this card. So he had written about it and had a lot of interest in exploring what the different things within the card represented. Normally, as you may have guessed, the image of the chariot was quite literally a chariot with horses, horses drawing it, which is pretty classic, but sort of stems from the Italian Renaissance, which is about the time period that tarot really took off. So, no surprise that that was the imagery, but in that period, it was led by a man. The imagery had a man who was steering the horses of the chariot, and this symbolized victory. This symbolized the accomplishment of goals that this person had set out to do. It was like sort of adjacent to like a warrior archetype. Someone who's very passionate and determined, and almost like ruthless, but not in like a dangerous way. I suppose, like, warriors would have been, but this card is not telling you to be ruthless in that way necessarily. Um, but yeah, I um, I have the card uh, designed with parts of vehicles now because that's a little more modern. Um, and I I have one person who's like not necessarily leading the vehicles, but she is part of the scene. And she's in one vehicle looking at the other vehicle. So there is this connection between her and this unknown driver. And if you do drive, you do kind of have to anticipate the moves of other people. That's how you get from point A to point B, safely. um, so I thought that was like a fun little twist on it. And then also to have like the fractions of vehicles instead of like a full car. I use this to highlight sort of an idea that Eliphas Levi brought up in his writing, where the horses represent different parts of the psyche that you have to bring together in order to get to your goal. You kind of have to find that balance and alignment within yourself. And these two vehicles, these two horses, or whatever other creature you may see representing the chariot, um, they have to work together, and there has to be some kind of element of connection or control um, to keep them on the right path. So with cars, it's a lot easier to kind of, um, I guess, control in a way, because it's not a living creature. It doesn't have a mind of its own. You are in control of the mind. Not to say that you can't lose that control, or something happens, the anticipation of something external uh, of yourself might have some kind of influence. So that's kind of why there's an unknown driver in the other vehicle. So there's sort of that connection and disconnection in one. And that's what I wanted. So the card itself, like I said, represents um, that will to move forward. And when it's upright, generally this is like fast moving. You know your directionality, you're moving towards it. Maybe there's a few obstacles, but you're kind of in this mindset where like you have control of the horses or the vehicle or whatever. You're not asking anyone to take the wheel. You're like, I got this, don't worry. We're gonna arrive safe and sound. And there's that like cool self-confidence, that determination, and the self-reliance that comes with the card, that might show up in your character at a certain point if you are to pull this card in a reading. If, however, this card comes out in reverse, this may indicate some obstacles. This may indicate some pushback, delays. We've all friggin' been stuck in traffic when we didn't want to be. Not that there's a time that you ever want to be stuck in traffic. Well, unless there's like a good song that like you want to listen to before you get home. And you're like, oh, you know what? Even then, I'm gonna say like nobody wants to get stuck in traffic. It's really friggin' annoying. Um, so yeah, with this card in reverse, there's something disaligned. There's an issue with the car. uh, things aren't clicking. um, this is sort of the analogy of like the horses having a mind of their own in the classical representation of this card and what the imagery would represent. But yeah, for this could be just like your check engine light comes on and you're like, oh, that's not good. And it kind of like reroutes or um, creates some friction in terms of your movement forward. Um, so you've maybe got to make a pit stop, or, there's someone super slow crossing the street, doing the crosswalk or whatever, and you're like, I gotta be somewhere. So in these cases, it's important to really reflect on what you're rushing towards, because there might be something grander that you need to know along your journey before you get to your destination, whatever that intended destination may be. These obstacles may be put in your way for a reason, because there's something that you need to learn, there's something that you need to look at, there's something that you need to review, something that you need to reconsider, because yeah, there's a piece missing, something's not aligned, as I said. So definitely say it with me, folks. Look at the cards around the Chariot card when it comes out, because they will definitely have some kind of influence over what it may be, what you may need to consider. And honestly, if you don't get anything right away from the surrounding cards, you can always reshuffle and ask more specifically, like, what are the obstacles that I'm facing on my journey towards this goal? And hopefully that gives you a little bit of clarity. But this is one of those cards where, like, upright, like I said, you got the wheel. In reverse, you might be like, whoa, somebody take the wheel. Somebody steer this for me. But it's really up to you. Like the someone is steering for you, and that someone's the universe, and the universe is saying there's some shit you gotta attend to first. Um, and while this can be like really friggin' annoying sometimes, it can also be a blessing in disguise. So, yeah, they're like, let's say, as an example, you have a job interview and you're looking forward to it. You're like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do, blah, 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 blah. You read the cards and the Chariot comes out, and the Chariot on top, get it? Because the cherry on top. The Chariot comes out upright. You're like, dang, awesome. This is looking positive for me. This is a step that I've taken that's bringing me closer to my goals. Maybe it doesn't necessarily mean you get the job, though it could. It might mean that because you took the step, your name is in the circles that it needs to be for you to get the job that is actually going to put you further ahead. Alternatively, same scenario, but when you're reading, card comes out reverse. This might be some issues getting to the interview. This might be you reviewing your resume after the fact and realizing, there's an error. This may be even self-doubt creeping in. And then you're sort of more scattered and stuff going into the interview. and you're kicking yourself in the butt because you're like, dang, why didn't I take more control over that? Why did I fumble? Um, and that's not the point. The point in that situation is, um, hey, it's time to, like, all of these things are put in place for you to really look at, is this thing worth it? Is this thing that I'm working towards worth the effort? Maybe this job isn't what you want, not deep down. Maybe you just applied to it because you're like, why not? But there was something else that you were holding yourself back from, or something else that's going to open up shortly that's better suited to you. And if you were to take that job, then you would have missed out. So, things like that you have to consider when working with the Chariot card, because I can't stress enough, like, when a card is in reverse, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just a new perspective. Um, Quite literally, you're looking at the card in a different perspective. So, yeah. Um, I think that pretty much wraps up. I think this was a considerably short um, episode. Normally, the episodes are like 30 minutes long, but today, ooh, today, yeah, we're keeping it short and sweet. Got to from point A to point B real friggin' fast. Um, but yeah, I hope that gave you a little bit of insight if the Chariot card has been making an appearance. Then, you know, listen to her. Um, oh, oh my gosh, I always do this. Thanks everybody for, you know, riding the wave of my thought process. I do have notes set aside, but I'm trying to go off script a little more. Keep it genuine, keep it authentic. And because I do that and my brain, either the synapses are firing all at once or not at all, I never know what I'm going to get. So I mentioned at the beginning that there's a repeating image in a few of my different pieces. And that is flowers. And we've kind of talked about flowers before, in terms of like life cycles, a representation of seasons and going through phases and stuff like that. In the Chariot card specifically, I have cherry blossoms. And cherry blossoms typically represent the transient nature of life itself. Sort of this delicate and beautiful side of the human experience. And I thought that was like such a nice um, aspect to bring into the tarot, because that's kind of what tarot represents, is these like ever-changing cycles of life through like sort of an awakening experience, um, changes and ego death. And I really love that imagery. So we see that in the Chariot card. We also saw it in the Tower card as well. And both of these cards, it's like sort of a trajectory thing. So the idea of like how gentle the cherry blossom tree is, and how easily something can break, um, and sort of this representation of growth, again, the transience, like enjoying the things of the present, because life changes quickly, so life moves really quickly, so gotta stop and smell the flowers once in a while. You get me? You picking up what I'm putting down? But yeah, that is what I wanted to say at the beginning, but I was like putting it on the back burner. Unfortunately, I generally forget that I'm cooking things. So, uh, yeah. Anyways, thanks so much for listening, or watching if you're still watching on YouTube. Um, I really appreciate you guys uh, giving me the space to speak about something that I'm very interested in. So I appreciate you. Anyways, I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you next time. Bye.